Everything whatsoever that appears within your experience is what you are. You are everything. You are the totality of what appears. You are your body. You are the world. You are your thoughts. You are emotions. You are subtle energies, psychic vibes. You are meaningfulness on every level. You are consciousness. You are presence. You are being. You are all of this. This totality of your being is everything. It includes everything. You can't find anything outside of it. You can't find anything beyond it. There is no such thing as outside or beyond. There's just this fullness, this reality, this actuality which exists, which is right here, right now, always. And this is what you are. It has no parts and pieces. There's no portions of it which are you and portions of it which are not you. It's just a continuum. It's this presence, this field of being that is. It appears very, very different from different perspectives. From the sensory perspectives, it appears the way each of the senses perceives. The visual field looks like light, patterns of light, seeming objects and all of these sorts of things. The field of hearing, it seems like sound, just all these vibrations, a field of vibrations and so on. Taste, smell, touch, thought. What does reality seem like in the world of thought? It's very interesting. And then beyond thought, beyond conscious thought, and just sort of intuition or trans thought intelligence. What does that perspective look like? What does that perspective feel like? And then just other perspectives of just energy presence, consciousness energy presence that we have no language for. What does it look like from those perspectives? What does it seem to be? All these infinite different perspectives each present a drastically, fundamentally, even contradictory versions of what this is. And they're all true. They're all real. The fact that they don't necessarily fit together into a nice, coherent whole is just how it is. It means nothing. It is the whole. It is the entirety. It is that intrinsically, regardless of what it seems to look like, regardless of what seems to be happening. This presence, this field of being, appears miraculously. It's not being done by something. You don't have to do it. It doesn't require any effort. Just poof. Always right here, right now. Effortlessly. Completely. Including everything. It does everything. It does all the work. Everything appears in the instant. If you seem to be doing something, that doing it disappears right in the instant. So it disappearing does the doing. If you're struggling with something, the struggling appears in the instant. So the disappearing does the struggling. This flash of presence in the instant that is the totality of the field of being is everything, does everything, is the source of all. And this is what you are. You are this flash. You are this fullness. You are this presence of actuality. Inclusive. It has no priorities. It doesn't have any portions of it which are better or worse, more true or less true, more you or less you. All of it is simply it. All of it is simply this. All of it is simply you. All of it is the radiant presence. The mind is powerful to try and analyze it and categorize it and comes up with names of this and that, and designations of the way this portion of the field is different from that portion of the field. And it imagines these differences and assigns priorities and assigns importances, assigns urgencies, assigns desire, assigns fear, assigns all of these different categorizations from different portions of the aspects of the energies that seem to be appearing in the field. And all of this is done spontaneously. All of this, likewise, just appears in the flat. But none of that mental activity is true. None of it is accurate. Because there's only one thing here, and it all includes itself, and it's all equal to itself. Every and any portion of your experience is equal to any and every other portion of your experience in terms of what it is, in terms of its value, in terms of its truth, in terms of its being you, being real. And it's all basically the same thing. It's all basically one thing. This is the presence of God. This is the presence of reality. This is the presence of being itself, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what you call it. It isn't improved by, giving it fancy names, and it isn't diminished by giving it mundane names. What it is intrinsically, that is important, not what we call it, what the mind, the stories the mind spins about it. And the most fundamentally important thing is, it's right here. You are it. You have it. You can't possibly not be it. You can't possibly not have it. And it's right here for you to study, explore, play with, which is what you've been doing forever. And what you'll always be doing. But recognizing this fact enables you to appreciate it, perhaps, and enjoy it a little more intimately, what's actually going on, what you're actually doing. There's only one thing here, what I call radiant presence. Everything is this one thing. This is not a metaphor or an allegory. This is a literal truth. We should say the one thing that's here is consciousness. We can call it that. But that is not a very useful way of indicating what's here, because that doesn't really explain all the stuff, all the all the details, all of the information that is the basis for our, elaborating our situation with bodies and worlds and circumstances and events and all of that. Radiant presence, it shows its nature a little more. It is a presence. It exists. And this presence, holding a presence, is useful because it's available, it's obvious, it's not an abstract thing. Consciousness is a little, you can't really do much with it. It indicates the property of this, of its sort of awareness is present, sure. But presence is palpable. Presence is felt. This is the isness, the presence of your experience right here, right now, is very clear. It's very, very undeniable. It's extremely explicit. This presence is. And intrinsically, the nature of this presence is that it is radiant. In other words, it shines forth as infinite information, infinite experiential qualities. All of the color and light and vision, sounds and hearing, touch and our sense of touch, and thought, and so on and so forth. All of the experience, all of the experiential qualities that appear spontaneously are presented as this presence. This presence shines forth as that, without ever becoming anything other than presence. It's not like the presence is here and then it is putting something over there. It's all right here. It's all presence itself is this shining forth of all of these qualities. if you take an inventory of your experience and look at what is present in the field of vision, light, what is light? What is present in the field of hearing? Sound. What is present in the field of touch? What is touch? Smell, taste, thought. What is present in thinking? Literally, substantially, what is it that is present? What is it that is being experienced? What are its qualities? What is it like? And if you look very, very closely at any of these, experience anywhere in any of the sense fields or anywhere whatsoever with an experience, you will recognize that its flavor as a dynamism, a very high frequency, sparkling, you might say. I mean, and we don't have language for this. You can't pin down precisely how it is what it is, but it is being experienced, and it's very recognizable that it is so. In experiencing this and feeling this and really looking very closely at the quality of radiance, you can see what it is. You can learn to see that it is radiance and see that the radiance is the same thing, essentially, fundamentally, wherever you look. Light is essentially the same as sound in terms of the experience of it if you look very closely at it. It's essentially the same as touch, essentially the same as thought. It's the same everywhere. Different degrees of texture, you might say, different degrees of coarseness or fineness, or you might say different frequencies, lower frequencies or higher frequencies, loosely speaking. But the important thing is not how you think of it or how you try and describe it, but to look for yourself and see the truth of this, see that this energy that appears as experience has quality, it has texture, it has a flavor to it, and this can be investigated very directly, very, very closely. And in doing so, you can come to recognize that this is one field of vibratory energy, call it, of radiance, of the radiant presence. And everything is this. It does not have gradations of, it's not a pure or less pure. It's not sacred or profane. It's not good or bad. It's all just different energy. It's like when you go to a movie, in a movie theater, and you're watching the movie, you see the hero and you see the villain. They're made of the same light. The light that the hero's made of isn't better light than the light that the villain's made of. It's the same. There's just this one stuff, this one actuality that is present. This is the radiant presence. And this is what everything is. And most fundamentally, it's what you are. There is no you aside from the field of radiant presence. If you feel your being, you're feeling the existence of the field of radiant presence. You're feeling the existence of your experience. When I say I am, I'm saying this experience is. And this is the truth. This is the soul truth. There's no truth other than this. And yoga consists of looking into, investigating this truth, discovering it for yourself, really refining your experience of it as much as you're interested, as much as you're motivated to. And you can come to discover the absolute fundamental truth of this, of the soul existence of the miraculous radiant presence. That is everything. Of course, the upsides of that are that the implications of what radiant presence is vastly different than the implications, the ordinary materialistic implications of our modern human worldview, where you're, a small, powerless physical being subject to all sorts of problems, and, in a vast world outside yourself that you have no control over, that's basically, more or less problematic, and you have to, sort of tiptoe your way through it to try to try to survive, try to find some kind of enjoyment, whatever you can do. So the implications of that worldview, we're all familiar with. And in many ways, there's a lot to be, a lot to be annoyed by there. Whereas the implications of radiant presence are very different. This a miraculously shining forth field in infinity of eternal, infinite, pure energy beyond space, beyond time, that is made of intelligence, made of meaningfulness, made of fullness, made of beauty, of fascination, and intrinsically self-supportive, intrinsically in perfect harmony with itself, intrinsically self-maintaining and eternal. It literally is that. It happens to be that is how it is. And you can just discover this for yourself through the investigation of yoga. There is a fundamental wholeness. There's a fundamental completeness. This is not an abstraction. This is not a philosophical idea. This is the concrete fact. This that is here is entire. It is complete in its presence, in its being. There is all of the elaborations of your experience, all the details that we ordinarily attend to so intensely as human beings. Their circumstances and their social situations and your body and all of these things exist within and appear from and never depart from this fundamental completeness of your experiential field, the fundamental completeness of the presence of being. And again, this being, this presence is not an abstraction. It's concrete, it's self-verifying, it's undeniable. This fact, this isness that is right here. This is the highest, this is the greatest, the most fundamental reality. This is what this is what you are. And feeling this and letting yourself notice the undeniable fact of this being, of your being. I am. This is. These are self-verifying, undeniable fact. And feeling this, you are feeling the ultimate integrity of reality, the completeness of all, of everything, of the universe, of all dimensions. And in this wholeness, in this completeness, there's infinite elaboration, literally infinite dimensions of phenomena, of experience that appear. Ordinarily, as human beings, we're not really used to attending to very much of that. We don't give it very much attention, typically. We're very aware of our sensory worlds, the sensory field, sensory dimensions. It's the mental dimensions and imaginary dimensions and what have you. But there's infinite dimensionality. These dimensions overlap with the fractal infinity of engagement. If you go into any experience whatsoever, the experience experientially opens into infinite variation, infinite elaboration, infinite harmonics of meaningfulness, harmonics of alternative flavors. All of this is quite clear and self-evident. And none of this departs from the fundamental wholeness, the fundamental completeness of this being that you are. In feeling this, you are feeling you are feeling the supreme reality. You are feeling God. You are feeling the absolute. This right here, it's not an abstraction. It's not philosophy. It's fact. You know this, and in knowing this, this is the highest yoga. The simple knowing. The simple isness. Feeling it. And recognizing that you always feel it. You've never felt anything else. This that exists, what is here, right now, this, the reality of your experience, the reality of your being, is everything. It's the entire universe. It exists right here, right now, and it's absolutely complete. It's finished. In the instant of this coming into being, this apparition, this existence, it is entire, it is complete, it is whole. There's nothing missing. There's nothing incomplete. There's no parts or pieces that need to be fixed or adjusted. It appears full-blown, entire, complete. Now, of course, we experience what seems to be the flow of time, and what it looks like seems to be changing. But these changingnesses appearing are this present moment of absolute completeness. Nothing is gained, nothing is achieved through what seems to change. The value of what this is right now is already finished. It's already absolutely complete. All value is right here, right now. This is the fullness. If you let yourself feel this presence, you can feel this. It is full. It is whole. It is entire. It's everything. And in feeling this completeness, you're feeling all that you ever feel, ever. There's nothing else than this. As humans, we're used to not paying very much attention to the fullness of the present moment. We're used to paying a lot of attention and interest in what seems to be happening, what seems to be developing, circumstances we hope that will happen, or circumstances we want to avoid, and putting a lot of investment and urgency into looking at it that way. But unfortunately, with that approach, it's like trying to drink water from a mirage. You're chasing after it. By the time you get to the mirage, there's nothing there. There's nothing to quench your thirst. The only satisfaction, the only enjoyment to be found is found right here, right now. And you already have it. It's already fully available. Just in the feeling of the fullness, the completeness of your being. The completeness of this being that is right here. This being is not an abstract thing. It's not a philosophical thing. It's concrete. The actual presence of reality, this that is right here, is the fullness, is the completeness, is the value. You can let yourself notice this. You can let yourself feel this. You can let yourself see the truth of this, know the truth of this. And then you'll be able to enjoy it. To rest in the fullness of what you are. this is not just an emotional thing or a trick to feel good in some simple sense. It's actually settling into the absolute fullness of your own empowerment, the fullness of your own intelligence, the fullness of your own functionality and capability. All of that is just right now, right here. And in relaxing into that and simply realizing the integrity of that, the integrity of your being with that, all of that is fully available, all of that is fully here. And your very functionality is maximized, is optimized. As well as, of course, the enjoyment, the profound appreciation of the value and fullness and richness of what this is, of what you are, without depending upon needing to achieve something that isn't achieved yet, needing to attain some sort of special circumstances, needing to do something or to avoid something. It's a lot like one of those flip books. The book where there's a little drawing on a piece of paper, and then you turn the next page, and there's another drawing very similar. Then turn the next page, another drawing very similar, a little different. And then when you flip through the pages, it looks like something's happening. It looks like maybe someone's walking or something's happening. But each of those, there's nothing really happening. Each of those pages is a complete drawing. It's the whole thing. There's no actual action there. There's no actual event. It just looks like that. And, to me, that's very reminiscent of what this is like. The moment is absolutely complete. And the next moment looks a little different, but it's absolutely complete. And so on. So this is this endless flow of fullness, of completeness, of wholeness. That's always looking as if something's happening. But nothing is actually happening because nothing is being added to or achieved by the completeness that's already here. It's not like the completeness is achieving something or building on itself into some greater accumulation or something like that. Feeling this presence is knowing all of that. Just this presence that is right here. The radiant presence. It's everything. It's what there is. It's what the universe is. It's what you are. It's absolute unity. It's absolutely unified. What this is, what is here, is entirely miraculous. It's magical. There's absolutely no way to make sense of it, to get a handle on it, to sort out how it works, what it is, what anything is, what the relationship of this or any portion of it with itself is. The entire thing is completely unfathomable. Life is by presence. Life is by the fact. Life is not by figuring it out. Life is not by, knowing what to do. It's already being done. Just the present, just the isness, just this you here, this here is already life happening. And that's the entirety. That's the wholeness of it. No way to make sense of it, no way to deconstruct it, no way to, describe it. And yet the mind does this nonstop. And in the realm of our human discourse, of course, this is what we pretend to be doing. We pretend to know what we're doing and know what we are and know what things are and know, have theories about what we're doing and how to do it and how to get around it. All of that's complete and utter bullshit. All of that is absolute pretense. It's absolute arrogance. And what's worse, it's insanity because it's not true. We think, if you live like that, you think you're living in a world that doesn't exist. The world that does exist is just this that is here, that's already happening. It's already doing itself. You're already one with it. And you don't know how. There's no instruction manual, there's no description. But here it is, here you are. And this is it. So what is this? I don't know. What are we doing here? I don't know. What's the point? I don't know. See the truth of that. You already know the truth of that. When you came into this world, you had no clue what was going on. You still don't. Although you've gotten better and better at being able to pretend that you do. Being able to mirror and spit back all the stuff that was told to you that you were indoctrinated in as a child. Oh yeah, I know my name and I know where I am and I know this is a this and that's a that. But that's just mahi-see-mahi-do. You don't really know anything. It's still just the presence of the mystery, this mystery of isness, the mystery of me, the mystery of I am this. You can't add to that mystery, and you can't ever leave that mystery. That's the beginning and the end. The alpha and the omega, you might say. This mystery. It's important in spirituality to understand that this is not about playing mental games or games of philosophy or, tricks of perception. This is about what is real, what is actual. This here, this that exists, your very being, but alone is present, is what it actually is. That is what is interesting. That is what is important. That is what is powerful. Simply feeling this being, feeling this isness, feeling the actuality of your experience, the actuality of your being, right here, right now, is the entirety of yoga. It shows you what it is. It reveals itself. It opens all of its subtleties and nature opens to your understanding just in this engagement. The only thing that confuses the issue is all of our ideas about what it is, all of our mental interpretations. We think that it's this and that. We define things. This that is present is absolutely undefinable. But you're not defining it as you're experiencing it. The definition is added mentally, sort of over the top of it. The experience itself is fully present with absolute intimacy, absolute clarity, with no interpretation, with no definition. It simply is as it is. This is, and then the mind comes in and says, oh, this is a sense of vision and I'm sitting in a room and I'm seeing a room and this is a body. All of those interpretations come in after the fact. The simple fact itself is just this presence, all this entirety, this continuum of being, this continuum of experience that is always right here, right now, with absolute actuality, absolute clarity. And that is the entirety. That is what is important. That is what is powerful. Just this being right here is literally the presence of the absolute. Just this being, this simple, mundane, everyday, here I am being, is the presence of God. Literally. Not figuratively, not metaphorically, not poetically. Literally. This is the absolute. This right here is the Big Bang. This is what the Big Bang happens to look like right now. You know, these are not mind games. These are not philosophies. These are not clever tricks or clever ideas to play with. This is the simple fact, the only fact, the objective fact, the fact, the physical fact. This that is this entirety is a continuum. It's one thing. It's one event. It's one. But the only thing. This thing that is here is one thing. We ordinarily think of it as made up of, infinite number of things, and there's this and that, and all these objects, and you and me, and rooms and things, and cars, and windows, and the world, and all this stuff. But that is not true. All of that is just this one continuum of being. The continuum is what is concrete. All of the different objects is what's abstract. We usually think of it as the other way around. We think of it as the objects and the things are concrete, and the continuum is an abstraction. That's not like that. The continuum is what is concrete. That is what is here. The things are all imagined in by the mind, but they're separated out. It's just like when you watch a movie. You're seeing a single pattern of light, but you imagine there's people and there's cars and there's rooms and there's things happening. You imagine all these separate things. There's no separate things. It's one whole field of light you're seeing, right? When you watch a movie, that's what it is. Same way when you're dreaming. You dream, and all these different things appear, and you're there, and other people are there, whatever, all this object stuff, whatever event's happening. But there's none of that there. There's only one thing there, the continuum of dreaming. It's the only thing that's there when you're dreaming. All the things, all the objects, all the stuff, all the complications are not actually there. They're abstractions. They're imagined abstractions overlaid in imagination over the one continuum that is there. And likewise here, this is this one continuum. This is the continuum of your being. This is the continuum of radiant presence. Just this, it's right here, right now. That's what this is. There's only this one thing here. Notice that, feel that, see the absolute, undeniable, self-verifying truth of that. And you will know reality. You will know God. You will know what you are. The great secret of spirituality is that this being right here, your being, is the absolute being. Your experience is absolute reality. You are not some spark of something that's separated from something that's somewhere else that you have to get back to or find. You're not some subsystem. You're not some small, partial, individualized creature that is disconnected from reality, disconnected from wholeness, disconnected from fullness. This being right here, the actual reality of your experience right here, right now, is the absolute continuum of the divine, the continuum of absolute reality. Reality does not have parts and pieces. It does not have, outgrowths that are somehow separate from it. It's like when you dream at night. The dream is not created. You're not over here. The consciousness is not here dreaming, and the dream is somehow some entity that's created over there. The dream is the consciousness. It's one with it. It's integrated. There's no separation. There's no division. There's no gaps. It's absolute inclusion. This being is the soul being, is the absolute being. This is the being of the divine right here, right now. So this, of course, is wonderful from the spiritual point of view, from the point of view of yoga. Because if this is absolute reality, all you need to do is check out what it is. What is it that's here? What is this? What is this that's here? And you discover many things very quickly. First of all, it's miraculous. It's just here. The present moment is just here. It's not being put here. It spontaneously is. It spontaneously is this right here, right now, effortlessly, with no friction, with no resistance, with absolute inclusiveness. Everything, the totality of being simply is. And it's absolutely includes itself. All of the dimensions of being, all the dimensions of experience are right here. There's no divisions between them. There's no gaps. There's no separations. No isolation. And you discover infinity right away. This is unresolvable. The depth and richness of qualities that are present is literally infinite. This is the manifestation, the explicit manifestation of infinity. This is what infinity looks like. It has no end whatsoever of richness, of qualities available. Anywhere you investigate in this, you find more. And if you investigate any portion of that, you find more, and any portion of that, you find more forever. This is also pure intelligence. It's purely interrelated with itself. It's purely functionally inclusive of itself in all of its structurality, and all of its function, and all of its juxtaposition, you might say. And it is profoundly, it is endlessly meaningful, it is luscious, it is juicy. It's not some mere mechanical event, some lifeless, mechanical thing that is. It's an event of profound meaning, profound beauty, profound juiciness, profound value, profound love, profound richness. All these words, of course, are conceptual approximations, and they don't in any way capture the thing itself. What this is unresolvable. It cannot be captured in concepts. It cannot be captured in words and ideas. Words and ideas depend upon definition. You have to say this is this and that's that. You have to be able to distinguish them in order to use the words. Reality is not like that. It's undefinable exactly what anything is because of the richness, because of the infinity of its qualities. If you look at what anything is, you can't pin down, you can't get to the bottom of what's there, because the more you look, the more you find, literally forever. And yet you don't need to define it because you have it. You have this richness. You have this fullness of all of these dimensions that are manifestly, explicitly present right here, right now, always. If you say an inventory of your experience, you'll notice, the different senses that we're all familiar with, that we spend so much time paying attention to as humans. You'll find mind, different mental dimensions. You'll find other dimensions of psychic qualities or vibes or who knows what. We don't have language to refer to these things. And as you continue to explore all the dimensions that are present, you'll find that there's absolutely no limit to otherness, to qualities, to literal experiential spaces or contexts you can move through or find your way through. And all of this is intrinsic in what this is. It simply is this right here, right now. And the exploration of this, the process of spirituality, is called yoga. And this yoga is nothing other than looking at the simple actual being of your present experience and exploring what it is, letting yourself recognize it, letting yourself come to appreciate its incredible, inconceivable richness. And it's noticing especially the way that it completely and utterly is beyond what we ordinarily think of it as being. This discovery invalidates completely our consensus reality ideas of an objective world, of objective space, objective time, of cause and effect, of multiplicity. All these consensus reality ideas that we take for granted are completely invalidated simply in looking at what this is and letting it show you what this actually is, the way that it actually is. I want to talk about the personal perspective a little bit. We're all very familiar with the personal perspective of, I'm me, I'm an individual, I am, doing things, I'm working in my life, I'm trying to achieve things, I'm trying to avoid things, whatever, all these sorts of things. And this is held to be in the context of an objective perspective of there's an objective world which is not me, which is separate from me, which is the environment and the context within which I, in my personal strivings, am working to do whatever I'm trying to do in terms of my endeavors. But the truth is there is neither a personal perspective nor an impersonal perspective. There's just actuality, which of course includes what we ordinarily think of as the personal perspective, as well as the impersonal perspective. But there's no personal, there's no impersonal. There's an inclusive continuum of actuality. What is actual is what shows up in experience, what appears in experience. Everything that you may be used to thinking of as personal is something appearing in experience. Everything you may be used to thinking of as impersonal or objective is appearing in experience. In my visual field, the wall behind me appears in my vision in exactly the same way as my face appears in my vision. I ordinarily will think of this is me and that's not me, but in terms of the experience in the visual field, it's one inclusive continuum of light, of informational, of experiential characteristics. And likewise with all other of the sense fields, with mentality and with all aspects of experience. The experiential field is an infinite inclusive continuum. It's one thing. That's the actual entity that's here. That's the actual thing that exists, is your experiential field. And within it appears an infinity of apparent information characteristics, all of which are infinitely differentiated from each other in terms of their nature, their flavor, the way that they seem to appear to be, and yet none of which depart from or are anything other than this continuum that is present. In terms of spirituality, in terms of yoga, the personal it's often approached in terms of a personal perspective. I want to achieve. I want to, realize. I want to escape my suffering, whatever, in whatever context, whatever way that is, being felt. And then that becomes the basis for striving within the supposed objective context of the environment and the situations and so on. But the actuality is the arising of this patterning, the arising of this infinite, intricate patterning of that is the circumstances of your life, that is the circumstances of your being. And this pattern that appears, the pattern of all of the information that presents in your experience, is not just some inert mechanical event. It's pure intelligence, it's pure meaningfulness, it's ultimately profound. Everything that appears in experience there's no hierarchy of meaningfulness. Everything is precisely full-on value, full-on meaning, full-on importance. Not in a way that can be analyzed, not in a way that can be conceptualized, but in terms of what it actually is, this is so. And this includes what we ordinarily interpret as our personal qualities, our personal ambitions, our desires, all these sorts of things, likewise are just appearing. Just like the sun in the sky just appears, the clouds in the sky just appear. The wall behind me just appears. What I want just appears. And all of these qualities appearing within this continuum are the play of this pattern, the play of karma. Karma is a word which refers to this patterning that appears. And why this seems to look the way that it seems to look. Why is this not plain vanilla? Why is it not just sparkles like on an old-fashioned dead TV screen? It's not. It's intensely, highly patterned. This patterning that seems to appear in experience. And this is the basis for our interpretation of the details of our circumstances and all of that. But there's not really any circumstances. What there is the patterning itself. That is the circumstance. But the patterning is a patterning of meaningfulness. It's a patterning of profundity. And it is participatory. It's not just it's not some mechanical event that's just appearing, but consciousness is somehow passively watching some movie that's happening, sitting there with its mouth open, drooling. There's a participation. This is consciousness is doing, is being, is enacting within and this patterning that is occurring. It's a dance of energies, you might say, that consciousness does with itself, that God does with itself. And this is what everything is. This is what you living your life is. This is what everything happening is this dance of the radiant presence with itself, as what looks like you living your life, what looks like you being in your karma, doing unfoldment, all of this that spontaneously occurs as this dance, as this supremely sacred dance of the radiant presence. I'll be glad to talk with you about any of this. What is this? What is this? What is happening here? What is this that's here? This, of course, is a big question. This is a question that spirituality addresses. This is a question that plagues us all of our lives from the time we're born. Of course, when we're young, we're indoctrinated into whatever worldview our parents teach us of what this is. We're indoctrinated into the consensus reality worldview, which is not accurate. It's not actual. And some of us are a little more skeptical, have a little more of a scientific bent, and we notice some of the inconsistencies or the sloppiness in the contentious reality view, and we begin to ask these questions ourselves. Maybe we get interested and we read books about things, maybe we get interested in the sciences or whatever. Maybe we get into spirituality, but it's always with the pursuit of this issue. What is this? What is happening here? What is this being? What is this presence? What is this event that is right here, right now? If you make a list of what exists, what has being, what is real, and you look at that list very carefully, you'll start crossing things off as what is absolutely, undeniably, self-verifyingly real, actual. And the one thing you find, the first thing at the top of that is experience. The fact of experiencing. There is experiencing. And then if you look at your list, everything else on the list you'll find is an extrapolation from the fact of experiencing. There is experiencing. There seems to be experiencing of light, color, and shapes. And some of these light and color and shapes could possibly be experiences of objects that exist in the world. And then so that jumps to the hypothesis that, well, maybe these are objects, maybe this is a room I'm in, maybe this is a body, maybe this is a wall, and so on. But all of these other objects that are extrapolated from experience are hypothetical. If we look really closely, they aren't self-verifying, they aren't undeniably certain. Whereas the fact of the being of experience it's undeniably certain. It's self-verifying, true, that experience is. And if you look closely, your list stops there. That's the only thing you can find that is self-verifyingly true. It's important to stay with what is true, because what is true has power. What is true has authority. If you step off into hypothesis, if you step off into possibility, you step off into realms of argument, realms of debate, where it may be true, this may be true, it may be like this, it may be like that. And that has less authority, that has less intrinsic power than the fact of being, the fact of isness, that this undeniably is, this being that is here, this presence that exists right here, right now, is undeniably true. It is. It's the fact, the sole fact. So that's a good place to start. That's a good place to stay. What is this fact? What is this being? What is this experience that is here? And then as soon as you ask that question, then you're practicing yoga. Then you're in the realm of really drilling down into what this is, the way that it is, what it is. And in doing so, an interesting thing happens. The more you study what this is, you never really get any closer to pinning it down. But a funny thing happens, all of the ways that you're used to supposing it be tend to fall away, tend to become invalidated. You notice that experience is always here, it's always now. So your notions of history, your notions of time, become questionable. Your notions of space become questionable. Experience is always inclusive. It's always full. Your notions of otherness become questionable, and so on. All of these ideas that we've taken for granted that are deeply ingrained in the feeling tone of what we hold this to be, what you hold your being, your life to consist of, they're a little more tenuous, a little more fluid. As you settle into actual flavor, the actual nature, that you discover this presence, this actuality right here to consist of. And this happens not consciously necessarily, not as a result of a lot of analysis, but just in simply feeling it, feeling the richness, the fullness, the nature of this presence. Its nature communicates itself. Its nature is obvious. Its nature permeates your understanding and supplants, because of its authority, because of its truth, because of its actuality, it supplants the more tenuous ways that we've held it to be, the more tenuous feeling tones that we've had about this over time, as we settle into the simple fact of this radiant presence that exists right here, right now. And this is the path of yoga. There's one thing that exists. You can think of it as like a spectrum of subtle energy that runs from infinitely, let's say, low frequency to infinitely high frequency. Or you might think infinitely coarse to infinitely fine, or well, it can't be, you can't say exactly how it is, so it's not too important how you think of it. But it's interesting, it's like a spectrum of subtle energy. And one of the things that's most interesting about it is that it appears very, very differently when viewed from different bandwidths of the energy. Now, the focus of attention can move freely throughout the whole spectrum. When the focus of attention is on the lower end of the spectrum, the energy appears to be stable, it appears to be diversified into different things, it appears to be very complex, it appears to be sort of, like I say, slow and stable and not particularly dynamic. And this is exemplified by our sensory experience, for example. The sorts of things that we see in the field of vision and touch and sound and all this sorts of thing. As you go up slightly higher frequency, the way it appears changes. For example, this goes to what we might think of as the way imagination appears, the way dreams appear. There's a little more fluidity and subtlety, dynamism in the way that the sort of the patternings of the energy appear. When you're up to a higher frequency than that, you get even more, a greater range of interconnectedness, of subtlety, of multiplicity. Things seem to be not necessarily this way or that way, but interconnected and able to morph from one thing into another in very nonlinear ways. Likewise, when you go up a little bit higher in frequencies, then you get to a point where there's a profound interconnection where there's not so much discreteness. It's not no part of the pattern is completely separate from any other part of the pattern. They're all like interlocking matrices and these sorts of sort of seeming interrelationship like that. And then at even higher level, it gets to be almost a unity of oneness of the pattern with, there's infinite differentiation, but the differentiation is all very much of one thing. So it appears so fundamentally, so drastically different from different perspectives. Now, one of the really interesting things about this, though, is that what the energy is that's present is exactly the same at every level. even though it looks so different, it's the same energy. It's not actually different. Sorry, I feel a little shattered this morning. I'm not too inarticulate. Hopefully, I'll get a little more focused as the morning wears on. So this spectrum of energy that's present is the totality of reality. There is nothing other than this field of energy present, this spectrum of energy. This is what you're experiencing right now. This is what you are. This is what constitutes your being and your world. This energy is pure intelligence. The energy is not inanimate and with some sentience separate from it that's observing it. The energy is sentience. The energy is consciousness. The energy is intelligence. So the patterning that appears within the energy is the patterning of the intelligence that is experiencing the energy and that is creating the energy. All of the energy always appears with this infinite degree of patterning, and the patterning is the very nature of the energy. You might say it's process. It's absolutely inscrutable in terms of trying to get a handle on what that is or why it is or even if it is. And yet we can say empirically that it seems to be this way. The focus of attention moves throughout the spectrum. And a great deal of unfoldment, a great deal of the development within yoga consists of being able to move, to notice the attention moving within the spectrum and coming to experience the nature of the spectrum and these different frequencies. At the outset, when one's a spiritual newbie, one might say, when one's in ignorance, technically, the focus tends to be predominantly on the sensory world and perhaps a sort of a forced mental world. But as one investigates experience and discovers the subtler frequencies of the different perspectives of the radiance, this opens and unfolds one's understanding of what it is that is present, of what you are, and you incorporate these different perspectives, different modes of interrelatedness into the feeling tone of what your experience is like, what you feel yourself to be. Becoming aware that this is one continuous spectrum, this is one continuum. All experience is different perspectives on one thing. The sensory fields of experience, mental experience, subtle energy experience, all of these different, very, very seemingly widely divergent modes of experience is the same thing. They're experience of one thing that seems to be very, very differentiated within itself, but is not actually. This one field of radiant presence that alone exists, that is the literal body of God, that is reality, that is you, that is your being, that is what is here. And exploring this, becoming aware of this as it is, of course, is the path of yoga. Here you are, sitting in your normalcy, in front of the computer or whatever, in your room, absolutely regular, absolutely normal. This very normalcy is nothing other whatsoever than radiant presence. This normalcy that is here, this absolute commonplace, another Saturday, another morning or afternoon, whatever, is a miraculous, inconceivable presence, the soul event, the supreme event. This being, this very normal being, you feel this is, right? This is, right? This is happening. This is real. You're here. This is really going on. This being that you feel is the supreme being. It's not some subsidiary being that is, somehow a spark of something else somewhere else. This being right here is the absolute being of the divine, is the supreme being of reality itself. This is normal I am, this feeling that this is. When you feel this feeling of this presence, you are feeling the absolute. Literally, you're feeling the absolute. There's nothing beyond this. This is the supreme. And this being shows up as an incredible, infinite panoply of energy. This inconceivable patterning of energy that's always present, showing up as inconceivable intricacy, always changing, absolutely dynamic, never stable, and it never repeats. Ever new patterns, images, energy patterns flowing in this presence, in this being right here. And this is radiant presence. The being that is right here is the presence. This is present. It's self-evident this is present. It's not a philosophical idea. It's not an abstraction. It's a concrete, self-verifying fact. Right? Presence is. It's undeniable. Yeah, this is present. It's, that's, if there's any fact at all whatsoever, that's it, right? I mean, what else, anything else is up to question, but that is present is like, if I say, no, it's not, what would that even mean? And this present always looks like something. It always has qualities. It always has, an incredible intimacy. Even if you're in deep sleep, there's a universe of subtle qualities that are present. You go into a dream, and then there's more infinite patterning present. You wake up, there's more infinite patterning present. You meditate, more infinite patterning present. It's always the same presence, always infinite patterning, absolute fullness of patterning. There's no degree to which anything is void or vacant or not filled in. Absolute fullness, absolute completeness of this amazing infinite energy filling the field of this miraculous presence, this miraculous being. And it can be shocking to see because it's just this normalcy that we're all so familiar with. It's just, here I am another Saturday morning, right? But this is it. This is fucking it. This is the real thing right here. This is the top of the heap. This is what all the fuss is about. Different traditions talk about the Atman or the Dharmakaya or, the Great Spirit or the Supreme or God. What they're talking about is this very thing that is right here, right now. No more, no less. And in recognizing this, in seeing this, and letting yourself explore it as it truly is, outside the bounds of your preconceptions and your definitions of what it is, you can discover and recognize its miraculous nature. Of course, the challenge in yoga is the mind is so powerful at being able to define what its version of things is, its narrative of what's happening. And then what's worse is that narrative becomes hypnotically simulated. What would it feel like if that was really true? And then it somatically feels as if that's how it is. It feels like I'm in a body. It feels like I'm in an objective environment. It feels like there's separation. All these things are being felt because of the power, this hypnotic power of mind to be able to simulate these notions, these ideas. But if you look closely at experience, there is no separation. There's an absolute continuum. This is a continuous field of energies. Call it energies, we call it whatever you want, experiential characteristics, light, sound, color, thought, whatever. It doesn't matter what you call it, it's the thing itself. And all of these different dimensions of the energy that appears are the same energy, even though they have different textures, different frequencies, you might say. Light and sound and thought are the same thing. Just, with different, like I say, different textures. And all of this, and they're continuous. There's no brace, there's no depth, there's no this isn't that. The field of vision isn't continuum. It's one thing. The field of hearing is a continuum. It's one thing. The field of thought is a continuum. It's one thing. And each of these fields are continuous with each other. So there's just a one continuum full of these different dimensions of what we think of as sense fields and thought and all these other things. But it's just one presence, one continuum with no brace, no this is and that, no separate objects, no event, no this caused that, this interacted with that. It looks like that. The mind interprets it as being like that, but it's not actually like that. You can think of it, for example, as in a dream. When you're dreaming, you imagine, there's all different sorts of things, and they're interacting with each other, and they're, you have problems to solve, and there's people you have to deal with, or whatever objects you have to interact with. But then you wake up and you realize there was no one there. There was no objects there. There was no environment there. It just looked that way. And it felt that way. It felt as if it was that way because of this powerful hypnotic property of mind to be able to simulate these narratives to make it feel as if they were true, as if it was really like that. And of course, we all know that intimately, right? Our day-to-day experiences there. When you go to a movie and you find yourself getting caught up in the plight of the hero or whatever you're identifying, and you're like, an explosion goes off and you jump, or there's a love scene and you start feeling mushy. I mean, all these things happen, right? Because this is the same hypnotic power of mind simulating the narrative it's being fed by the plot of the movie. And then it makes it feel, what would it feel like if that was true, if that was actually happening? And then it, just to whatever degree, it feels that way. It feels as if, wow, this is what it would feel like if I was in this situation. Well, this is what it would feel like if you were in the situation of Saturday, sitting in front of your computer in this meeting. But nothing like that's actually happening. There's no Saturday, there's no meeting, there's no computer. There's the infinite field of radiant presence. That is the literal truth. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally, physically. That's what's happening here. And yoga of radiant presence is letting yourself explore this, letting yourself discover the truth of this for yourself. Radiant presence is right here, right now. There's nothing else. It is the intimacy, the instantaneity of this. It is this presence that is here. There is nothing else than this here, right now. The difference between knowing radiant presence and orienting to it as human ordinarily do is drastic in terms of the implication. Feel this fact, this completeness, the entirety of your experience, the entirety of being is right here, right now. There's no then, there's no time before it, there's no time after it. It's right now, right now, right now, always right now, always right here, with no distance. It's absolute intimacy. It's closer than in your face. It is completely one with you, this that is right here, right now. And there is nothing else than this, which right now is everything. There's a popular saying like, let go of the past and these sorts of things. where you let go of the past is right now. You don't let go of the past like a week ago or your childhood or yesterday. You let go of the past right now. You don't not anticipate the future like thinking about a year or a week or tomorrow. It's like right now. There is no future. There is no past. There is only this right here, right now. Now, this includes what we think of as intelligent. It includes what we think of as memory. It includes what we think of as thought, which can seem to be about a future and a past, seem to be about memories and chains of events and all these sorts of things. And the way that works is miraculous and inscrutable. You can't make sense of it. But the whole thing is nothing other than this field of radiant presence that is right here, right now. The difference, the difference between orienting to your experience as the instantaneous radiant presence, and orienting to it the way people ordinarily do, as all of the details and the things and, I'm here in my circumstances and what's going on and this and that and the other. If you orient that way, the way people ordinarily do, you're involved in a very complex scenario that is evolving over time, and that's what's front and present. And being, existence is somehow in the background. It's here, but it's not of the essence. And the essence of all this stuff is in the foreground, all the details. But the field of presence itself, if you're oriented to that, that's what's in the foreground. This entirety, bang, like a flash. This flash is everything. This flash right now. And this flash contains the past, it contains the future, it contains the details, but the flash is what's in the center, front and center. The details are sort of just interspersed in there, like little small aspects. Like, for example, I have some health issues, and sometimes I have pains or discomfort in my body, and, I'll be lying in bed going to sleep or something, and my mind will drift to those, and I'll start orienting to it, and thinking about it, and feeling it, and thinking, am I getting worse, I'm getting old, my body is falling apart, blah, blah, all this stuff, this whole narrative, and I start to orient to it like that, and that's, then I think of my history, my childhood, I was younger, my body was stronger, and all these sorts of things. There's this whole elaborate scenario, and I'm embedded in it. And, it's sort of, it's not, it's not a lot of fun, let's say. But then I look, wait a minute. What's here? This flash right here, right now. And that is wholeness, it's completeness, it's light, it's life, it's presence, it's no less than it ever was. It's no more than it ever was. It's absolute completeness, absolute fullness, absolute reality. And then the details received, they're here, but they're small, they're little, they then literally become more ghostly, because what's here is this with details, rather than what's here is details with this in the background. Now, this is something you can play with, and I really recommend that you do so, because it really is quite a difference in terms of experiencing the implications of being with radiant presence very directly as the actual thing that is here, right now, period. And if you play with it, I think you'll discover the power of this, Probably the fundamental task in yoga is to learn to distinguish between fantasy and actuality. In the early stages of yoga, when one's a beginner, one can be said to be in a state of ignorance in the technical sense as it's usually used in spirituality. where fantasy and actuality are smeared together, and there's no discrimination between the two. There's no ability to distinguish between the two. There's not even an awareness that there is a distinction. It's all one, held to be one whole, as if everything is in the way that the fantasy holds it to be. Through examination of yoga, one learns to discover that there is an actuality which is the way that it is, and there is a powerful action of mind generating interpretations of what this actuality is being held to be, which are inaccurate. They are not true. And the inaccuracy of these interpretations is the problem. If the interpretations were accurate, there'd be no issue, but they are not. This is fundamentally because interpretations depend upon definition. They depend upon resolution. They depend upon conceptualization. Reality is abstracted into conceivable portions that are then thought to be whatever they are: objects, means, events, anything whatsoever that is defined. In this room is a definition. This human being is a definition. This world is a definition. That picture is a definition. Anything that can be said or thought or indicated that has any kind of identity or stability to it. This is all indications of fantasy. Actuality, on the other hand, is infinite. It's unresolvable. It's entirely undefinable. It's entirely instantaneous. It has well, we don't need to get into that yet. What it is discovered through yoga, and it's entirely other in its nature, in its essence, in its form, than anything that's conceived in fantasies, conceivable in fantasies. The problem is that in experience, these appear together. So there's the experience of the field of vision, which is actual. And simultaneously, there's the appearance of defining property of mind, which looks at the field of vision and abstracts objects and conditions within this field and holds them to be actual. So that even though an infinite field of light is being seen, it's being held to be objects, things, and so on. And these are merged together into a unified whole, which is not the case. They are not a whole. Actuality exists in the way that it does. It is what I call radiant presence. It is absolutely unfathomable, miraculous presence of, can't say, this. The goal of yoga is to come to recognize this that is actually here. This is all that exists. This is what this is. This is what you are. The way that it is what it is the way you are what you are, and the way it is itself is the way everything happens. There's only one event here. Radiant presence, being radiant presence. And that event is right here, right now. That's the only cause. That's the only effect. That's the only thing. Fantasy is distinguishable from actuality by the fact of its being definable. Anything that seems to be something that seems to be definable, that has any stability or persistence over time, is an indication that it is fantasy. So if this is my hand, that's obviously a fantasy. If it's still my hand, that's a fantasy because the experience itself always changes. Nothing stays the same. Nothing is the same in two consecutive instances, you might say. Experience is the patterns of the qualities that appear in experience. What is being experienced, you might say, is instantaneous. It only appears the way that it appears right now. It's never appeared that way before, and it will never appear that way again. And it's continually changing and dynamic. So there are no things that sit inertly. Whereas in fantasy and in conceptualization, things are held to be relatively inert. So I might say this room that I'm in is the way that it was yesterday. It's the way that it is now. It's going to be more or less the same way it is tomorrow. But there is no such room. The actual room is my experience, and it's never been the same way twice. So coming to recognize this is the fundamental task of yoga. Ordinarily, people don't recognize experience as an actual thing. People ordinarily think of themselves as a body, an object that lives in an external environment full of other objects and things that are engaged in complex interactions and interrelationships. And experience is just some abstract way of perceiving all of that. The actuality is that experience is what is here. The experiential field is what is present. Objects, things, people, bodies, all of these complex interactions are abstractions that are imposed on the experiential field. And so it's the opposite of what it's ordinarily felt to be. Coming to recognize the nature of experience is what yoga is about. This that is present is not fixed, is not static. When in the materialist consensus reality conception, ordinarily, objects are thought to be, they're fixed, they're stable. Things are sitting there more or less unchanging, more or less the same constantly. So if something is sitting there and you leave it and you come back to it, it's the same, you come back to the same thing that you left. The actuality of experience is very different. In experience, nothing ever repeats. You can never get back to precisely the same experience that you have had in the previous occasion. Experience is an endless flow, an endless morphing into newness, into otherness. And with no way back to any prior condition. It's always new, it's always fresh, it's always an exploration. It's infinitely multidimensional. If you look at experience, as you experience anything whatsoever, spontaneously the experience moves, it opens, you might say it free associates. You notice other aspects of the experience, let's say in the sense field. Say, suppose you're looking at something. As you see it, what you see actually changes as you're watching it. You may think of something else and that opens. You may remember something and that opens. You may have a feeling and that opens. And each of these things that open themselves open to other dimensions. So there's this endless opening of dimensions, opening of worlds of exploration, worlds of flavor, worlds of experience. And you never can get back to where you started from. You may get back to something that seems to be similar. Like if I'm looking at this computer and then I with what my experience is and I look at the computer again, it seems to be very similar. But in actuality, the experience is entirely different. I'm seeing it in a different context, with a different mood, with different flavors, different aspects of what I'm noticing. I'm seeing it from a slightly different angle. My head is shifted and so on. So experience is this endless flow, this endless dynamism. And with no fixed points, with no static references whatsoever. And this is the radiant presence. This is all that is this field of experience. This is what there is, this is what you are. This miraculously present fact of experiencing. So being with this, noticing this, letting yourself truly notice this endless flowing that you are, is the process of opening to yoga. Radiant presence is one thing. It is all that exists, right here and right now. It looks like what we ordinarily interpret as all of this complexity, all these different things, me, not me, environment, objects, things, complexities. But it itself is just one thing. All of these multiplicities don't actually exist in themselves as separate autonomous conditions. It's just the one event, the one condition that exists. Very much like in a dream. In a dream, there can seem to be all sorts of complexities, many people and beings, and you're there, and you're in different situations, and you're interacting, you're trying to do things. And yet there's absolutely nothing there but the dream, nothing there but dreaming. There's no things, there's no people, there's not you that's appearing in the dream. There's appearances of the dream. The dream is what's there. The dreaming is what is happening. Likewise, right here, the shining forth of radiant presence is all that's happening. It looks like you sitting there looking at your computer, being in this meeting, in the room you're in, all this. It looks like that. But what it actually is this single unified energy field. This field made up of the subtle energy that I call the radiance, which is all of the energy that makes up your experience. Light, in vision, sound, in hearing, thought, in mind, and so on, all the other subtle qualities of experience that we don't have names for. All of these are this one energy in this one field that exists right here, right now. You are this field. You are nothing but this field. Nothing but you exists. Nothing but this field exists. To him to know this, to him to see that this is true, to him to feel this and live this, or to recognize that you are living this and have always lived this, there being nothing else whatsoever. There's no other way to be than to be as this field of actuality that you are. To recognize this is yoga, is realization. And the implications of what it is in itself is so fundamentally different than the implications of what our usual narrative of what our materialist reality consists of, where we're separate beings in a complex environment, struggling to get by and deal with problems and so on. Very much like in a dream, when you're in a difficult dream or a challenging dream, and then you wake up and you think back, oh, none of those problems were there. There's no problems at all. It was just a dream. It looked like that. It seems to be that. But what it is this one presence of consciousness, this one presence of your being. You are feeling this. You are knowing this. There's nothing else to feel and know. And coming to recognize this is yoga. This that is here, this actuality, is present in your experience, the present of you, is a miracle. It's the miracle. How can this be? What's doing it? It's impossible. And yet it is. This fact right here is the sole fact. It includes all the detail of itself, and yet is the one thing that is the one fact, the one truth. The truth of this being, this presence. You are, this is, reality is, the universe is, this is, different ways of saying this one fact. It's self-verifying, it's undeniable, it's the given. Feeling this fact, knowing this fact, which you always do, is the highest prayer, the highest meditation, the highest yoga. Feeling this oneness, the oneness of this being, this presence, this radiant presence. This is present, and it shines forth as all an infinity of detail and information and meaning and complexity and interrelationship with itself. And this is its nature, this is its process. This is it being what it is. This is it being itself. This is you being what you are. Spontaneously, effortlessly. Always complete in the very instant. With no process. With no anticipation. With no residue, no remainder. Just this very instant, absolute instant. Everything. Always everything. Always the totality. Always you. This is self-evident. Feel this present. You always feel it. You always know it. There's nothing else to feel. This is, I am. This is here. There's nothing else to know. There's no higher knowledge. And there's no limit to the richness that this knowing gives, that this knowing reveals, that this knowing shows. Drink deeply of this knowing. Drink deeply of this presence. It endlessly fills you. And you're always doing this. You have always been doing this. You can't not do this. The biggest joke is that there can be some failure. That there can be some lack of participation, some lack of doing it right. It's already done. Your being what you are is the completeness already happening. It's always in a state of perfection, of completeness, of finishedness, of fullness, of wholeness. This is what this is. This is what you are. You can't not be that. Mind is powerful to hold it to be various ways, to hold it to be partialized, to hold it to be incomplete, to hold it to be unsatisfying, to hold it to be diminished. But all of this is imaginary. Imagination is powerful. Mind is powerful. But it's a creative exploration. It's never true. The activity of mind is the predominant aspect of the activity of this presence. It explores itself through fantasies, through hypothesis, through virtually partializing itself, through sort of simulating what would it be like if it's like this, what would it be like if it's like that, what would it be like if it's like this. And this is what mind does, and we're all very familiar with this. This is how we get the sense of, I'm a human being, I'm in this body, I'm separate from the world, I'm partial, I'm unsuccessful, I'm not whole. All of these notions are generated in imagination. They are not true, they've never been true, they cannot be true. And yet, imagination generates these ideas as vehicles of exploration, to explore what it is, to explore itself, to dance with its own energies in various ways, to explore its own permutations. All you've ever been, all you've ever done, throughout timeless time, is this knowing, this exploration. That's all that has ever happened, that's all that ever can happen. And yet it explores itself in its completeness, in its wholeness. Always. This wholeness and completeness cannot be hidden, even though it can be seduced away from by imagination, by powerful imaginations of partialization. But these fantasies are never true, and the real evidence is always here. So the basic act of yoga is to look and see what's true, look and see what's actual, look and see the way it actually is, which will always transcend what the mind is holding it to be. When you see that, you're free from the difficult implications of mind. You can see the true nature, this wholeness, this infinite openness, infinite fullness, limitlessness, unresolvability. Because that's what's here, that's the manifest fact. It's not a theory, it's not a philosophy. It's the only thing that you can find. If you look, this is what you will find, there's nothing else to find. So anytime, all the time, whenever, let yourself feel this presence. Just feel this being, this presence, this is. Feel the isness of your being, the isness of your experience. And let us feel the open-endedness of this isness, the inclusiveness of this isness. This being is, and it's everything. That's all that there is. That's the radiant presence. That's you. That's the totality of reality. What is happening here, what this is, what you are, is absolutely complete, absolutely whole, absolutely effective. It's completely successfully being what it is, doing what it does in the instant. The intrinsic process of its being, what you might call the shining forth in the radiance, is all that's happening, and it is everything, and it is perfection. It has no impediment. It's being what it is with absolute completeness. The portion of your functioning, of your participation in life, I might say, I'm sitting here and talking in a Zoom meeting in my apartment and so on, that sort of thing, is the merest fraction of what is actually happening, what this actually is. The intrinsic nature of my being, right here, this being that is the being of this reality, is absolutely full, absolutely complete, in the instant. Now, this doesn't invalidate or make irrelevant your seeming conscious participation in it. Like, well, you can decide to do this or decide to do that or decide to try to emphasize this sort of thing. That's all fine, but that is a tiny sliver of what you are actually doing, what your being is actually affecting as your being. And most of it is totally irrational, inconceivable, cannot be imagined or mapped or structuralized. And this spontaneously and completely affects itself, completely manifests its nature unimpededly as the totality of the being of your universe. This is what you really are. This, right in this moment, the being of your reality, the being of your experiential field, the bubble of your experience that your universe appears in. You are doing this, you are this, there is nothing else. And it is an intrinsic process, it's inherent in the nature of what you are, that it does this, it shines forth with complete success in the instant. The fallacy that we can make sense of it from a human perspective, from the perspective of, am I succeeding or failing? Am I doing this or doing that? Is an absurdity. The entire energy field of the reality of your being is what you are, is what is functioning right here, right now, always. And it is entirely complete. So from the perspective of our human conceptions of what is happening, of our participation, of our nature as an apparent individual being in a human milieu and so on, it's almost irrelevant. It has very little importance. You're free to participate in your life in any way you wish, and it's not very profoundly of the essence of what it is and what is happening. What you are is being what it is with total success. creation of reality is occurring right here, right now, as it always is, with total success, with absolute completeness. It cannot be assessed. The vast majority of it is not perceivable to human senses, perhaps, or to within the context of anything that is analyzable by a relatively human-framed parameters of consciousness. The very being of energy, the very being of the energy fields that constitute the substance of the universe, that constitute the substance of this moment, is the level at which you are functioning, the level at which you are being what you are. And feeling your being, just feeling the being of this moment, not in any grandiose sense. Just the simple fact of, yes, this here is undeniably, self-verifyingly. You're feeling the complete being of reality itself, the complete being of the entirety of this energy system that you are, the complete being of your universe. This is the most direct yoga, simply feeling the being of the present moment. Feel the isness of this right here, right now. And of course, it always shows up adorned with inconceivable experiential characteristics, energies, colors, lights, sounds, thoughts, flavors, emotions, all sorts of characteristics that we have no classification for. And all of this endless dance of patterning, endless dance of display is a treasure to its nature, that it does this. And this is all you. Simply feeling this fact is feeling the truth. It's feeling the wholeness of reality, the wholeness of your being. What is here is radiant presence. This presence, this actuality, and its radiant show as all of this incredible energy displays apparent experiential characteristics. And all of the apparent structuralities, all of the apparent circumstances in being, entities, and the material world, and all of these sorts of things are really aspects of its intrinsic nature, that it shouldn't happen to live like that. And what it actually is itself, completely beyond analysis, beyond structuralization, beyond conception. But you don't need to make sense of it. You are it. You are it fully and completely. It is fully known right here, right now, always. You've never known anything but this presence. This that is here, this actuality, is here as a seamless whole, instantly, complete, entire. It has no parts and pieces. It has no divisions. All of it is completely present right here, right now. It's one thing. It's one actuality. Coming to recognize this, coming to know the truth of this very intimately, is the goal of yoga. The mind approaches this presence analytically in terms of pieces. The mind can't deal with wholes. The mind deals with parts and pieces. The mind deals with, separate things. It says, oh, I'm here, my body's here, my personality's here, the world is here, people are here, cars are here, so and so. So it makes basically a list of separate things and supposes that somehow the sum of all those things is what's here, is the totality. But that's the opposite. The totality is a whole. It's not the sum of anything. The parts are not pieces of anything. They're not parts of anything. They are aspects of this completeness. They're inseparable from this completeness. You cannot separate anything out of reality. I cannot separate my hand from the field of being. I cannot separate it from it. This is the field of being. This is reality. Feel the truth of this. Of course, as you know about it, there's no problem with the mind being as it is. This is what the mind does. In our day-to-day functioning as humans, we ordinarily think in terms of, the divisions and systems in dealing with apparent conditions. So that's all fine. But even as you're doing that, try to let yourself feel the background sense of this wholeness that is the context within which all this happens, and which fundamentally is what all of this is. It's what you are. This wholeness alone is. You are this wholeness. You are this fullness that is here. This is reality. This is the universe. This is consciousness. This is God. Whatever you want to call it, this is the radiant presence. But it's actual. It's not theoretical. It's not philosophical. It's not a nice concept or something to aspire to or something to try to assert. It's a simple, undeniable fact. Right here, right now, this is. And this is all of itself. It's the entirety. The entirety is right here, right now. Feel the truth of this. Feel this presence, this unified completeness. This is what you are. This is what all it is. There is nothing other than this wholeness. The parts and pieces are imaginary. The wholeness alone is real. Feel it. Feel the truth of this. Feel this being. It's one being. It's not many beings. It's just one being that is this isness, this nowness, this here-ness. Always right here, right now. Know that you do know the truth of this. It's not something you need to come to see. You always see it. You always know it because your experience is of this. Whenever your mind is paying attention to you, the inherent intelligence of your experiences everything, all the entirety of it. You may be thinking about something, but you're experiencing your full field of vision, your field, all the sense fields, the mind, all all the different dimensions, all the different frequencies of experience are always fully present, always being felt, always being known. It's not something you need to learn to do or try to do. It's just recognize that, in fact, this is always the case. This is always happening. What you are is this present, and this presence is a self-engagement of, you might say, conscious intelligence with its own energy. Although, again, that divides it into parts and pieces which don't actually exist as such. It's this one being that is, by its very nature, a self-engagement, you might say. And this is what your experience is. Let yourself feel this, let yourself know this, let yourself notice that, in fact, you always do know this. And then let yourself know it in the background as you go about your day-to-day business. Because it's not the opposite of mental functioning. Mental functioning occurs within this and consists of this. The wholeness doesn't disappear when your mind is thinking of parts and pieces. Let yourself notice this. Let yourself notice the truth of this. You feel that this is realization. This is reality. This is the radiant presence that you are. The totality of your being, the totality of this being, right here, right now, is absolutely complete and finished in the very instant of its being. Our seeming participation as personalities, our musing about what we're doing and what we're doing to do or how we're participating is all after the fact, and it's rooted in the instantaneous accomplishment of everything in the moment, the very moment of its being, the very moment of its apparition. Right now, right here, it's absolutely complete and whole and finished. It's already been done. It's already being done with absolute completeness. And you are what is doing it. You are what is participating in this, but not on the level of personality where you're trying to guess and figure out what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you should be doing, all that sort of thing. The participation of being, of the true being, of true functioning, occurs right now with absolutely no processing, absolutely no logic or abstraction or mental processing whatsoever. There's a pure and perfect intelligence that you are is doing this, is participating in this, is being this in the moment. In yoga, you come to notice this. You come to notice that you are this pure and perfect intelligence, absolute lucidity, absolute inclusiveness, absolute engagement with the totality, right in the instant, utterly beyond and inclusive of the personality of their individual being, all that you normally classify as yourself, your human self. And the goal in yoga is to become aware of this, to settle into conscious participation in this level, the inherent intelligence of your being that is doing all this, that is being the moment, that is being the details of reality that are appearing in this instant. What you're doing and how you're doing it is inconceivable from the point of view of analysis, from the point of view of interpretation. But the doing of it is absolutely intentional, absolutely encompassing of your nature. Your nature is manifesting itself. The totality of what you truly are, doing itself, being itself, enacting its process, which is this apparition of your life, this apparition of your karma, this apparition of all the patterns that seem to be appearing, that you then may seem to be inhabiting as a human being, as this body and this personality, interacting with other beings and other situations and so on. All of which is actual, but it's not what it seems to be on that level of analysis. What it actually is the inconceivable intelligence of the radiant presence shining forth its nature. And in the shining of its nature, it is enacting its process, it's enacting its being. You are being what you are in this instant, in this shining forth. In feeling being, in feeling this presence, you're feeling what you truly are. You're feeling your being. You're feeling your intelligence. The instantaneous perception of the totality of your experience in the moment, which is not done consciously. It's not done as a matter of process. You don't have to think, oh, I better see this, I better see that, I better see this other, I better hear that sound. The intelligence totally is absolutely engaged across the totality of the field, spontaneously, with absolute perfection, absolute translucence. And this engagement is one with its creation, is one with its very being, with your process. The unfoldment of your karma, which is what this is, the unfoldment of your being, the eternal unfoldment of reality. These are not abstractions, these are the concrete facts. Humanity is an abstraction, personality is an abstraction. Descriptions of what you're doing and what you're going to do is an abstraction. But the presence of these instantaneous flashing forth of energies is not abstract, it's absolutely concrete. The only concrete reality, the only concrete fact. You're always feeling this. You always are this. You have simply let yourself know this, let yourself participate with your being on this level. Instead of being distracted by human levels of participation, human levels of engagement, and human levels of decision making, human levels of participation or non-participation, which are all imaginary. The true participation already is happening in this flash, this shining forth that this moment is, that you are. This is radiant presence. And your radiant presence is nothing other than this having to recognize itself. You're feeling, seeing the truth of your being, knowing the truth of your being. Let yourself enjoy the totality that you are, the totality of your participation with all of reality, this universe that is right here, right now, that you are. It's not an abstraction. This universe is real. It's you. But it's not what the mind can think it is. It is this explosion, this instantaneous flash of miraculous energy, a miraculous radiant presence. You can let yourself feel this anytime. Let yourself notice this. Make it feel the texture of it. This is right here, right now. Is radiant presence. Your being, your experience is the soul miracle. You may feel it's only your life, it's only dull normalcy, it's only you stuck in your circumstances, stuck in your situations. But normalcy is a fantasy. Normalcy is just only in the imagination. What is actually here is consciousness. It's energy patterns appearing within you. There's nothing else. You cannot find anything else whatsoever. What is normal about consciousness? What is not miraculous about consciousness? This amazing property of sentience, of self-knowing. It's obviously miraculous. It's obviously inconceivable. And these endless infinite patterns of light continually dancing within this field of knowing, this field of experiencing. Nothing else can be found in these patterns appearing in consciousness. The mind interprets these patterns as being normalcy, as being situations, as being things that are more or less always happening. And it looks for specialness. It looks for something exceptional. It looks for something more than that or out of that something that adds to that, something that improves that. But not only is the specialness a fantasy, but the normalness is a fantasy. The idea that there's something to get out of is totally imaginary. You may feel the intricacies of your psychology, the intricacies of your own emotional challenges, your own self-loathings, your own, neuroses that we all have that are endemic to the human personality. You may feel this is the normalcy, this is the dullness. But if you look at this, what is it? What is this personality? What are these elements? They're incredible patterns appearing very, very strangely, miraculously in this instantaneous being right here, right now. It cannot be explained, it cannot be conceived of, it cannot be described. And if the mind effortlessly writes it off, the mind effortlessly describes it, it says, oh, it's just the world, it's just matter, it's just the laws of physics, it's just psychology, it's just, just this, just that. As if that was somehow explained it or diminished it or made it lesser than what it actually is, the explicit fact of miracle. Being right here, right now. This is fame. This is appearing. How can that be? This is the sole fact, this explosion of being instantaneously in the moment. There's nothing else. Even calling it consciousness, calling it patterns of light is way too much. It's just this. Of course, we all know this. We all are this. It's self-evident. But the mind wants to elaborate. The mind wants to go further. Wants to describe it and turn it into a story and create a whole structure around it. Create a game. You know, there's all these elements. How do I win this game? How do I deal with this? How do I improve it? You know, how do I solve it? How do I, you know? But all of that is imaginary. All of this is just this energy dances of this instantaneous, this soul thing, this soul fact, this soul power that is right here, right now, that you are, that this is. There's nothing else, ever. Feeling this fact, knowing this fact, as you do, inevitably. Feeling this being, feeling your being, the being of your universe, your reality, right here, right now, is yoga, is revelation. And in this feeling, it endlessly reveals itself. It endlessly unfolds itself to new depths, new heights. There's only this one thing. You are this one thing. This is this one thing. See that, you're always seeing it. Feel it, you're always feeling it. The radiant presence is the substance of reality. It's what is actually here. It's what your experience is made of. It's what is present. Now it looks like what you interpret to be your circumstances. And of course, every detail, every aspect of your circumstances. Radiant presence is light and light. In your visual field, you see the world, you see everything around you. You see your body, you see everything, all the details that appears in your vision. But you're actually in the same light. The light is shaped light. It's configured in ways that can be interpreted as all the objects and circumstances that are present. But the only thing you're seeing is light, this energy that is present, this field of sizzling energy. You've never seen anything whatsoever other than pure light. But we don't notice the light because the mind chose to interpretation. Likewise, in the other sense fields, sound, touch, taste, smell, hearing, etc., whatever. What is present is the same energy. It's a different frequency. You might say it's a different texture than light per se, and the light that we actually see as vision. But it's essentially exactly the same energy. It's exactly the same radiant presence. So your reality consists of a field of energy, of many, an infinite spectrum of frequencies. And each frequency, or the different ranges of frequencies, let's say, are interpreted as being a different sort of a dimension of experience, in different sense fields. Mind is another texture of the radiant presence, emotion, another texture, and then subtler dimensions that we don't qualify as anything at all, just the presence of being outside of any interpretive context, any sensory field or mental field. But that is equally here. There's nothing but fullness of energy presence. And the energy presence in itself, the full spectrum of radiant presence, is pure meaningfulness. It's not just an inert mechanical fact, some dead thing that's here. It's vibrant, it's vital, it's alive, it's intelligent. It has meaning, it has, an infinity of messages, an infinity of communication, an infinity of profundity that it is exploring as what we call our experience. Your experience is your primal intelligence, which is radiant presence, exploring itself, exploring the different potentialities, the different iterations, permutations, and possibilities within radiant presence, within what you are, to explore these meanings, to explore these profundities of what your nature is. And your particular nature is such that you have a certain emphasis of what characteristics and what qualities you're exploring karmically. So there's certain qualities of experience that are particularly relevant, particularly meaningful to you, particularly present, engaged, that come up again and again repeatedly, immersively, as your experience. The flow of your karma, the nature of your individuality. And this is intrinsic in the nature of the radiant presence. It explores itself, it explores its meaningfulness as your experience. But it's all a single thing. It's just this field of energy, this field of living, vibrating, subtle energy, the spectrum, which is intelligent, which perceives itself. It projects itself as all of the detail of experience. And then it explores this as experience and dances with it, learns from it, comes to refine its understanding of itself as the artfulness with which it can be with the different possibilities inherent in its nature. And this is what life is. This is what reality is, this ongoing exploration of radiant presence, exploring itself. And this is all you are. This is all that's happening here. So this one single thing, this is the radiant presence being with itself as looking like all the intricacies and detail and complexity of your life, all of which is just this one thing, this one profound, meaningful thing that is the only thing here. It's you. It's what you are. It's what all of this is. And this is the radiant presence. This is what's actually happening here. Of course, it's possible to come to see this very directly and clearly for yourself, which is a very different perspective, a very different implication than our ordinary implication where we think of ourselves as a separate being, stuck in this world, stuck in these crazy circumstances, trying to get by, trying to make sense of it, trying to smuggle through. But it's your very essence dancing with its own nature, exploring its own nature as all of this richness. And the richness is in you. It's your richness you're exploring. It's your potentialities. It's your possibility. This is the radiant presence. This is what is here. This is what you are. Nothing whatsoever exists other than radiant presence. Radiant presence is what is right here. Radiant presence is what is right now. Nothing exists other than what is right here and right now. You can think of it as the miraculous presence of consciousness, within which appears the miraculous presence of infinite patterning, endlessly changing. Of course, all the patterning is the basis for the mind's interpretation that we have bodies, we live in a world, the world exists objectively, there's cause and effect, all that sort of thing. But all that is a hypothesis, it's a possibility, a possible interpretation of how the patterning works that the mind generates based on observing the patterning. And it's sloppy observation. If you observe the patterning very, very closely, it eludes, it is obviously beyond the mind's interpretation. This is one of the primary techniques of yoga, is to see that your experience does not correspond to the mind's version of things. It demands close attention, it demands sensitivity. Really looking at moment to moment, the way the patterns are, the infinity, the unresolvability of the patterns really continually change and morph. I mean, they never repeat. All of these, the nature of this is very clear. It's available for study, it's available for observation. And by looking into it carefully and sensitively, look into consciousness carefully and sensitively, look into the fact of experiencing carefully and sensitively, and you will discover this amazing, miraculous event that is occurring, this radiant presence. And nothing other than this event can be found. And what it is cannot be said, it cannot be thought. And it's obviously and clearly, explicitly, self-verifyingly beyond the mind's versions of interpretations of what it is. Absolutely nothing to be found. To say that it's consciousness is, well, it's probably approximately true. But what is consciousness? And you find consciousness, and you verify consciousness. What is this consciousness? Is it something that can be found? Is it something that can be, grasped, can be specified? And it's not. It's an imputation. We can deduce it as consciousness if we deduce that, well, there's experience, so something must be experiencing it. But that whole chain of logic depends upon logic. And the existence of this does not depend upon logic. This is the way that it is. It doesn't have to conform to logic. It doesn't have to conform to reason. It doesn't have to make any sense whatsoever. And it doesn't. So that's convenient. And above all, this radiant presence that is here is an absolute exclusive of itself. If you look for looking for yourself, you're looking for I, you're looking for, me, this, whatever I am that is here, that is myself, that is whatever, doesn't matter what you call it. What you find is this. You find this being. And this being includes all of itself. It is this one actuality, this one powerful fact that is right here, right now, always, eternally beyond space and time. And seeing this, this is a very powerful discovery because, of course, the implications of a materialist philosophy is that you're a small, dependent organism. You're this body that's dependent upon external conditions, dependent upon all sorts of things. You're vulnerable, you're weak, you're partial, you're incomplete. And yet, if you look at the fact itself, if you're looking for what are you, what am I, right here, right now, you find this absolute inclusive being that is everything. It's the totality. I am all. I am everything. I am this being. I am reality itself. This is not an assertion. It's a very true, obvious, self-evident fact. And, of course, this is the goal of spirituality in many senses. This is liberation from suffering, liberation from separation, liberation from incompleteness. Discovering the wholeness, discovering the unity of your being with God, with reality itself, with the absolute. This is what is here. This is what this is. This is what you are. Through yoga, you let yourself explore this, you let yourself see this, and discover this self-verifying, and let it show you what it is. It convinces you, it sells itself. It's not something that you need to assert or aspire to. It's self-evidently the way that it is. The single event, the single flash of being, this entirety, that's right here, right now, is all. Is you. Is the universe, is God. Not philosophically, just a simple fact. It is. This is undeniably. What this is that's here, this that exists, this radiant presence, in its nature is absolutely unresolvable. What this means is you can't tell exactly how it is, exactly what it is. You can't pin down precisely any aspect of it whatsoever with certainty. It's ambiguous. And this ambiguity is absolute because there's nothing outside, there's no reference outside of the radiant presence to have as a point of stability, as a point of reference. For example, you might be looking at a cloud and imagining, pre-associating, oh, it looks like a lion, or it looks like a teddy bear, or it looks like a train, or it looks like whatever. So the cloud, what the cloud looks like is ambiguous. But that it is a cloud in the sky is not ambiguous. So that has an external frame of reference that is being defined, that is being held to actually be a certain way. Even as the cloud itself is experiencing ambiguity. But the actual condition, the nature of this that is present, is completely ambiguous in every regard, completely unresolvable. And there's no external frame of reference to be with it. The mind in its nature wants to define and resolve things. Mind wants to say, oh, this is this or this is that. And of course, it does so very powerfully. We're all very familiar with this. This is a normal human mindset. We normally more or less think we know what's going on. We more or less have a narrative of, oh, now I'm sitting in a room talking on Zoom to people. There's a sort of an overarching narrative of that's resolved. This is resolved more or less, but then loosely at least to be a certain way, and then we react emotionally. What it feels like to be in that situation depends upon how the mind is defining it. If the mind is defining itself as being in an uncomfortable or a threatening situation, then you feel emotional. There's an emotional reaction that's appropriate to that. Or if you feel yourself in a beautiful situation where it's peaceful and you feel safe, then there's a corresponding emotional flavor to that. But each of these reactions, each of these the mindsets are dependent upon how the mind is defining what it thinks the situation is, what it thinks you are, what it thinks is happening. So the mind is unprepared. The mind is unable to be in a situation that's undefined. It doesn't know what to do with that. It scrambles to try to turn up definitions, which is its job. It's what it's supposed to do. So it does so. But by being distracted by the mind doing this, distracts you from the nature of what is actually here, which is undefined, which is ambiguous and unresolvable. The essence of realization, the essence of spiritual unfoldment, is opening to ambiguity, opening to unresolvability, opening to multivalence, to the fact that your experience is not one thing or another thing. It is a spectrum of richness, of characteristics, of flavors, all coexisting, all not necessarily consonant with each other. And this open-ended richness of unresolvability is what is here. And the mind, of course, has all sorts of different provisional narratives that it's generating as to what's going on. And these flow through, these are available, often many of them simultaneously. But, as you open more to realization, as you open more to what is actually here, there's less and less seizing on these narratives and more relaxing into the richness and the ease and the open-endedness of the unresolvable unknown that this actually is, in its immediacy, in its actual presence. This is very foreign to most human social functioning, except in the arts, perhaps, and in, I'm not sure what other fields at all incorporate and play with this ambiguity. Almost all human social engagement, human social endeavor, is oriented around resolution of, what we're doing. We're in this situation and we're doing this. We're in that situation and we're doing that. But to really settle into, the open-endedness, perhaps in play, in playfulness, that's more to the forefront. And in the arts and creativity. But the fact is that is the totality. The totality of what is here is this open-endedness, is this unresolvability. And coming to see the way that this is so very clearly and self-verifyingly is unfolding. There's only one thing. Only one thing exists. This is the essential fact. Coming to see this, coming to understand this, coming to know this fact is the goal of yoga, the goal of spirituality. It'd be very difficult because it's so contrary to the normal human way of understanding what's here. Or typically we imagine many, many different components, many, many different aspects, subjectivity, objectivity, me, the universe, all the human race, all the beings, all the atoms, all of the infinite multiplicity of different things that we imagine all to be separate from each other. We imagine them all to be in interaction and causing, in a causal relationship with each other, pushing and pulling on each other. So there's this enormous, ordinarily I think there's this enormous complexity, enormous multiplicity that of course is impossible to get a handle on. And we are busy trying to juggle our way through that or navigate our way through that to try to, find out where we fit in or how to work with all of the, all of the different elements that seem to be here in an effort to somehow find a point of balance or a mode of smooth flow where it all works well together. Which of course is a bewildering problem. How do you find a point of balance for an infinity of separate things that are all different from each other? And since this is so deeply ingrained in people's understanding, people hold this to be real and true, undeniably so. You say there's only one thing, people will say, what do you mean? That's gibberish. There's a computer and there's a table and there's, New York and there's you and there's me and that just seems to me commonsensically true. But the reality is that it's not. The reality is there's literally only one thing. Only one thing exists. One thing is here, right now. It's one thing, it's what I call radiant presence. You might think of it as consciousness, but that can be misleading because consciousness is essentially passive. Consciousness is the power to perceive. And the one thing that is here is does not merely have the ability to know, the ability to perceive, but it's also creative. It is also presenting as all of the incredible multiplicity, the infinite complexity of the energies that appear within experience. This one thing is appearing as that, is doing that. So it is both active and passive. It is both subject and object. It is both substance, it is both matter and consciousness. And everything whatsoever is this one thing. It's absolutely simple. It is already one thing. It doesn't need to be made into one. It doesn't need to be unified. It's intrinsically a unity. It is one. It is the sole thing that is this. This, the radiant presence that is right here, right now. It's what you are. It's what reality is. It's what the universe is. It's what everything and anything that you think of as existing is. This that is right here. It's like Kipling's elephant. It can present as all the different ways that it presents, but in doing so, it does not depart from itself. It does not become all the different ways that it presents. It does not actually separate it into all the apparent differences that are being experienced. The differences are the virtual differences. You can think of it very much as like in a dream. When you dream, there's all of the complexities appear, all the objects appear, all the complex situations and beings appear, and so on. And they're there. They're right here. You're experiencing them, right? But in actual fact, there's nothing there. The only thing that's there is the dreaming itself. The dreaming presents as it looks like all of this virtual multiplicity, all this virtual complexity, but it doesn't actually become that. It is still just the one fact of dreaming that looks like that, but it doesn't become that. It doesn't actually made up of that. And likewise, the radiant presence presents itself to itself as the infinite complexity of your experience. It looks like all of the apparent complexity that you have to deal with and so on, seemingly. But it doesn't actually become that. It is itself. It remains itself, just this that is right here, right now, inclusively. It's an absolute inclusive continuum that never separates into pieces or parts. It has no pieces and parts. It has no elements. It has no subsystems. It's a single thing. Now, it's not a thing that you can find. It's not a thing you can go and pick up or hold in your hand. Its nature is very transcendental. And yet it is findable, it is knowable very precisely, very specifically. And this, of course, is the goal of yoga. The word yoga means to join together, to unify. And so the process of yoga is to realize and achieve this unity. Although yoga implies that there are separate parts to be joined together, which can be a primitive understanding of this that many people have. But of course, that's not true, because it's fundamentally a unity, intrinsically, inherently. So it's not a matter of joining the separate parts together as discovering that, in fact, there are no separate parts, which, of course, achieves the same end, the goal of union, the oneness and unity the divine being that alone exists, that is here. Of course, it does not need to be created or brought into being or purified into existence. It is what is already the case. It really needs to be discovered because of our misinterpretation, the misinterpretation of mind, of consciousness, that does not understand, cannot see what this one thing is, and misinterprets it to be all of the complexity in the way that it has done so. Just this that is right here, right now. This is you. This is the world. This is reality. This is the totality. It's always right here, always right now. And there's nothing else. There's nothing more than right here, right now. This is it. This is the radiant presence. There's only one thing here. All this is one thing. I call radiant presence. It has no name. It is what it is. It's entirely irrational. It's impossible to pin down what it is, how it is, what it is. It's pure mystery. It's pure magic. The mind tries to make sense of it, tries to define what it's made of, what it consists of, and then constructs elaborate theories about how it works by the interaction of these things that it's defined into existence. But none of this is accurate. None of this is true. What this is continually interacts with itself, continually dances with itself, you might say. It's continually self-engaged, continually exploring itself, you might say. And in this exploration, in this engagement, there is discovery. And this is how you develop functionality through discovery. And it's a purely irrational, magical process. It's not a process of mind. I can move my arm. How can I move my arm? At one point I discovered how to do this. I didn't discover it by having it explained to me. I didn't discover it by sitting and thinking and figuring it out. There was energy engagement of experience. And in the course of the energy engagement of experience, the energy stumbled on what looks like moving my arm and recognized that as something, as a pattern, as a mode of engagement that it could then remember. So I had speak. I'm sitting here speaking. I'm not able to speak by knowing how to do it. I can't. I don't sit and figure out, well, how do I speak? Let's say I have to move my mouth. I have to move my tongue. I have to say words. I mean, it's not like that, is it? It's something that I discovered. I discovered how to speak by being in experience and exploring experience. I discovered making sound, the sound's happening. And I discovered that there's a participation with that. I discovered that there's participation with thought. I discovered there's participation with all these things. So everything, all functionality is a result of discovery. Discovery of the radiant presence dancing with itself. The radiant presence dances with itself and it discovers aspects of itself. It has revelations of what it's like, and then it remembers aspects of these patterns of these modes of engagement. But the discovery is always new. It's always fresh. I pick up a mug. I pick up a cup. Now I know how to do this. Because I've discovered how to do this. I can do this, and I discovered how. I call it picking up a mug, but what it is inconceivable magic, and yet I know how to do it because I've discovered how to do it. And yet there's discovery right now because I've never picked up this exact mug in this exact way, and this exact moment, with these exact conditions, these exact energy patterns present. So there's a newness there. There's a revelation. There's an ongoing arena for subtlety and nuance revealing itself. And in this ongoing revelation, there's an endless field of unfoldment, an endless field of expansion into newness, into novelty, into greater functionality, into subtlety. And this is yoga. The yoga of radiant presence is the fundamental self-engagement of radiant presence with itself. And as it does so, it discovers, it stumbles upon, you might say, or discovers the way it works by being with itself, by being with its working participatorily, participates, and then discovers how it discovers its possibilities, its possible modes. Now, there's not necessarily any limit whatsoever to these possible modes. So the level of functionality that you may have at any given moment is the sort of cutting edge of your current, sum total of discovery of the radiant presence that you are discovering its nature. But there's no limit whatsoever to ongoing future discovery. And this is yoga, this endless unfoldment, this endless discovery of what this is, what you are, and the way that you are what you are. And this discovery is by the direct inherent engagement, by this being what it is, the radiant presence endlessly dancing with itself. And this is your being, this is your experience, this is the dance of radiant presence. That is what you are. Everything that is this radiant presence. There is no matter, there is no world, there are no beings, there are no humans, there is no space and time. All of that is ways of interpreting, ways of seeing what radiant presence is, but radiant presence itself is utterly beyond being any of that. It is exactly what it is, and it is pure mystery. It is it's inconceivable, literally. And its functioning is essentially by magic. It works the way it does because it does. Not because there's a reason for it, or because there's a logic, or because there's laws that it has to follow. It works the way it works because it is what it is. And this is radiant presence. This is you. This is your reality. This is your world. And what you are is its unceasing aspiration. That's what you always have been, and you always will be. Your experience is an infinite inclusive continuum. It is the field of radiant presence. It includes the totality of reality. It's all fully present, but it organizes itself along the lines of a mandala, essentially. It organizes itself with always a degree of focus in the context a field of lesser focus, but always in the totality included. This can be confusing from the inventional reality perspective of trying to see how reality is related with itself. Ordinarily, of course, we think of things in terms of separate objects, separate beings existing in objective space, and these things are separate from each other. But the actuality is that, any apparent object that exists, to this computer in front of me, is a focus of attention that includes the full field. So it is a manifestation of the full field. There is no separation where the computer is a separate entity. And yet, the computer presents with a certain emphasis of characteristics. Whereas in other aspects of let's say areas of the field, there's different emphases of characteristics, but all the characteristics of infinity are always fully present. And they're all included. There's no separation. So if you are with anything, you're with everything. Anything is an expression of an outgrowth of everything, of the totality, and includes it. There is no separation experientially. Always remember there are no things, there are no objects, there's only experience. And so the way we ordinarily approach it in terms of fixed things has to really be shoehorned in and forced in, because our experience is much more open than that. When your experience of anything includes more than that, and you're aware of that too. We have a very heavy-handed mental sensory system that goes into effect in order to seemingly enforce the stability and the separate identity of the objects that the mind defines as existing. But actually, if you're with anything, if you relax, if you're with it and feel what's there, the feeling includes the totality, which from the point of view of maintaining the integrity of the object as having a separate identity and a separate nature is really a problem, because all of a sudden all of these other seemingly less relevant qualities are come with and are included with it. And ordinarily we'll think of this as, oh, I'm daydreaming, or I'm lacking in concentration, or something like that. But that's not true. In actuality, that's a more genuine experience of the way it actually is, where there are no separate entities or things. There is the inclusiveness of the field, and all of the flavors of the field are included in all in all of its relative focuses. There is different emphasis of what is being emphasized, or what is more predominant. Obviously, every portion of experience presents with different flavorfulness, and this flavorfulness is in the particular qualities that are predominant, being emphasized in that area of the field. But again, that emphasis is not a separate thing. That emphasis is like a bell curve that includes by degrees all everything is not being emphasized at the same time. Manifestly actually includes it, rather than just, it's just with it theoretically. So experience always includes itself, which in it can be very confusing and slippery if you're trying to make sense of it in conventional terms. But in terms of yoga, we take advantage of this by using any experience, any experiential engagement at any time is an opening into the totality, is an opening into the fullness, because it is a contact with the field, and all the qualities of the field come with that engagement. I was put on hospice several months ago. The expectation is I am not going to be here for very much longer. I've been trying to do these Zooms for as long as I've been able, and it feels like I'm getting to the point where that's getting difficult in terms of how my body's functioning. I feel like the quality of the Zooms over the last year has been going down. My mind is not as sharp as it once was due to drugs I have to take, as well as age and so on. My knowing of what this is does not fade, but my ability to translate it artfully and riddling into words has been dulling. So, we have the recordings of the earlier Zooms, which of course will remain available. A friend asked if there was a teaching, if I had new teaching about dying. And yes, I think that's important. The teaching about dying is the same teaching about anything. This is radiant presence right here, right now. This is reality right here, right now. Your experience, what it is astounding, regardless of what it looks like. And this is the great fallacy, as humans, we spend all our time worrying about what our experience looks like, whether we're experiencing this or that, whether we're succeeding or failing, whether we're happy or sad, whether we're sick or healthy. But that's not where the action is. That's not what matters. What matters is the presence of experience itself. This being, this miracle that is right here, right now. There's endless, infinite patterns of energy shining as all of this information, pure intelligence, pure meaningfulness, as the content of experience. Being aware of that on its own level reveals an entirely different perspective, an entirely different universe, an entirely different implication than you would have thought from looking at it from the normal human consensus reality perspective. And this is yoga. This is the very nature of yoga. It's to go to what experience is, not what it looks like. Doesn't matter what you do. It does not matter what you do. People ask me, should I sit in meditation? People ask me, should I take this drug? People ask me, does it matter if such and such? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Whatever you do, it's just what it looks like. You have a good dream, you have a bad dream. But the point is, it's a dream. What's a dream? Not whether it's good or bad. Not how do I get to good dreams? How do I avoid bad dreams? So this is the teaching on dying. This is the teaching on living. This is the teaching on being. It's all the same. This that is right here, right now. Fucking check it out. Let yourself feel what it is. Let yourself explore what it is in itself. Thank you all very much for joining me. Please take care. You have my best wishes.
Love you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.